Hello everybody, this is Albert with Green Tea House. I hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to talk about the two types of business owners, MAPA small business owners, that I encounter. Now before we begin, if you have notes already, come visit us here in New Braunfels, Texas. We're in a little hamlet called Green, halfway between San Antonio and Austin. We'd love to meet you. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so these episodes come fresh to you and post a comment. Now before we talk about this, because this is not really tea specific, it's more like tea store owner specific, I've mentioned to you how I post these videos way ahead of time. For example, I think this is going to come out in January of 2026. I'm recording this in April of 2025. I could be dead by the time this comes out for all I know. Either way, so I started to post the little short of me pouring different teas into my Kiyusu. Now by this point, who knows, there could be 50 of these shorts. But I think right now there's only 5 or 6. Today I just recorded Ginger Puer. And I appreciate you guys watching them. They get a lot more views than the regular episodes, so maybe I should learn from that. Either way, so this episode is not tea specific. So as you know, Casey and I own this store, and I look at this channel as, yes, tea education, tea history, but also just kind of like a vlog. Like it helps me process stuff. And if you don't know, I have a podcast called Tea and Herbal Fundamentals. You can only find on Apple Podcasts. And it's essentially these episodes that I've converted to podcast form. But there are some new episodes I do over there that are not here. And I look at kind of both of them as a vlog. And so now that we've been open, I'm recording this, we've almost hit our year. By the time this comes out, it'll be a year and 8 months. If we're still alive, God willing, if this place is still open. I have noticed some observations. I tend to be an over-analytical person. I tend to have some discernment, but I'm also a little over-analytical. But, I was a fat kid growing up, morbidly overweight. And part of being morbidly overweight is you don't want to be in front of people. And so you just kind of lurk in the corner and just watch people's behavior. And I know that sounds creepy, but it was not nearly as creepy as it sounds. But I've noticed, or Casey will go to networking meetings, Chamber of Commerce meetings, or I like to introduce myself to other people in this town that own coffee shops or tea shops, just a name to a face, because we're all kind of in the same industry. Certainly tea and coffee are not the same, but we're essentially in the same industry. And I noticed that there's two types of small business owners, and you could really extrapolate this out to a lot of small businesses. One of them is, I got into this business to make money. I have no interest in the product that I sell, or very little interest in the product that I sell. I don't have a passion for what I sell. Now, this could be a store, this could be a restaurant, this could be a cafe, this could be anything. I bought this business, or I started this business because I saw it as a way to make money, and I really have no interest in the actual product that I sell. Now, this first group, anecdotally, and again, this is just all anecdotal. Anecdotally, like when I go visit these places to meet the owners, they're never there. They're never there. Who's there? They're teenagers, they're barista teenagers, or their staff. They're never there. And I go, when's the owner coming in? Oh, I don't know, in a week. Sometimes they stop by to drop off stuff and then they leave. And I think this first group, they just went into small business, or they bought a pre-existing business because they saw it as a business venture to make money. Kind of like when you buy a house and you want to flip it. You don't really care about the house, you just want to make profit from it. Now these types of people, I would say, as a whole, tend to do pretty well. They don't really have an attachment to the business. They just see it as a money-making venture, and if it's no longer making money, they're going to try to sell and get out and maybe own something else. So you could have somebody who owns a small little cafe. They're like, yeah, we're going to move on to a coffee shop. Yeah, I'm going to move on to, I don't know, a beef jerky store. Yeah, I'm going to move on to a cheese store. For example, there's a little cafe a couple doors down from me. They've had 5 owners in 15 years. But they keep the name, I think probably to keep the Google reviews. But it's just being bought and sold all the time. So I think that's one group. They're not really there, and they could care less about what the product they're selling. Then you have the second group. The second group these are the people that are there all the time, even though maybe they don't necessarily need to be there all the time. These are the people who created their business because they love what they're selling. They either had just for examples, they had dreams of opening a cheese shop because they love cheese or they know about cheese. And like, this town needs a cheese shop, or this town needs a small bookstore, or this town needs artisanal coffee, whatever it is. And so these people have a passion, and that passion bore out a place, a brick and mortar place. And they love what they do. They love their product. See, I get spam calls all the time and it drives me crazy, so I apologize for the phone. Now, when you go visit these places, these owners are there all the time. I would say every day. They might not be there if they're open on Sunday afternoon. But if you go during the week, they're actually there. They're actually curating their store. They're actually taking care of customers. Because why? They love what they sell. They love what they're doing. Like their whole life revolves around offering this product, this bookstore, this cheese shop, whatever. Now, this group maybe isn't the best businessman, businesswoman, because they normally went into it because they have this dream of providing this service to people. But they compensate for maybe the lack of business sense with passion, because they really love what they do, what they sell. And so people can see it, because every time these people come, they see your face. Casey, for example, we did this short, I forget, Instagram calls it Reels, where we have it's just her and me waving, and it's like, meet the board of directors, and it's her and me waving. Meet the owners, and it's the same video of her and me waving. Meet the employees, and it's the same thing. Meet the part-time staff. Meet the cleaners. It's just that kind of thing where I would put myself in the second group. Look, I'm a public school teacher. I don't have a BA, much less an MBA in business. I don't know anything about business at all, but I love tea. Because of that, I grudgingly convinced Casey to open a tea shop. And so I fit in that second group, because even in some weird world that this store became super profitable and I was able to hire a bunch of staff, or I sold it for $1 zillion to whoever, Starbucks, I'd still be here. If I would probably put in some kind of clause where like, you have to hire me as an employee and pay me salary. And even if they gave it to me, or I sold it for like $1 billion, whatever, hyperbole. It's hyperbole. Hyperbole, I should say. And I don't need it to work. I would still work at a tea shop. Or I'd create another tea shop, because I love tea. I love tea. Now, there's days where I get tired. I'm cleaning glass teapots, because we serve in glass teapots. Or I get clean. We don't have some industrial grade dishwasher. I should do a little video. We should do a little reel about our little back room so you can see how big it is. It's pretty much enough space for a little refrigerator and a 3-compartment sink. That was the smallest 3-compartment sink we can get at Home Depot. So, so there's days where I'm like, gosh, clean. I did get like 3 college degrees so I could bust tables and clean. Sometimes I have those days, but more often than not, I just love coming here every day. I like talking tea. I like serving tea. This is why we have the tea YouTube channel and the tea podcast. I just love tea. So I'll be here every day, or Casey will be here every day. Even if we had employees, I'd still come. And so I would consider myself in the second group. And I've noticed, I guess naively, I thought all small business owners were in the second group when I opened a business. I thought, well, you opened it because you love your thing and you always want to be there. But I think a lot of people are like, I opened it so I can make money. And now that I'm making money and a lot of revenue and I have employees, I don't need to be there. That way I can be at home, or I can take trips. Yes, I'm sure they're still watching everything. And, I'm not saying they're not doing anything. But they're like, yeah, because if you really loved coffee, let's say you owned a coffee shop, if you really loved coffee, you'd be there all the time, even if it was like 2-3 hours a day, because you still want to be in that culture that you created. And I'm not saying that the first group is worse. In fact, I think the first group are better business people than the second group. The second group are idealists. But this is what I know. This is like this binary dichotomy that I see. Guys, post in the comments if you like. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care and God bless.